What's up, upstanders? Dr. O here. And look, it's extremely important that we not allow the Trump administration to use the cover of anti Semitism to destroy universities. Period. Bottom line. The fact of the matter is, there are no liberal arts colleges in dictatorships. That's what he wants. It's the destruction of universities because, as he said, he loves the poorly educated and he doesn't want an intellectual community targeting him. Now, I'm reading this from NBC. Dozens of universities across the country received a federal government warning Monday over their obligation to protect Jewish students on campus, just as President Donald Trump's administration clamps down on pro Palestinian protesters. Education Secretary Linda McMahon wrote to 60 institutions, many of which were the site of lengthy and at times fractious protests last year, telling them they would face, quote, potential enforcement actions, unquote, if they failed to uphold Title VI of the Civil Rights Act in regard to Jewish students. That part of the law makes it illegal to discriminate on the basis of race, color, and national origin in any activities that get federal funding. Now, first of all, the fact that they are going to use the Civil Rights Act only to support Jewish students, whereas it's supposed to protect people against discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin, within itself is hypocritical and disrespectful. The fact of the matter is, it is absolutely true that Jewish students have faced hostilities on campuses across this country. What is also true that many Muslim students have also faced hostilities on campuses across this country. Whenever a group like Hamas does something that is considered to be extreme, it comes back on Muslim students or students who may look like they are Muslim or look Arab because of the stereotypes that people have. Whenever the Israeli government does something that people feel to be excessive, it increases the intolerance for Jewish students on campus. Let's also be mindful of the fact that as it relates to direct violence and killing, and from what I understand, it is only people who are of Arabic ancestry, like the 6-year-old Palestinian who was stabbed to death and the 3 students in Rhode Island who were shot, who've actually experienced that type of violence. The fact of the matter is, there have been issues and concerns of both communities. I had one of my Muslim students come up to me right after October 7th happened. A week later, came into my office hours, and one of the nicest students you'll ever meet, and just said, hey, I'm ready to die because of what she was experiencing. So this is my point. This is my first point. We can't sit here and talk about discrimination or any hostilities that any Jewish students might be feeling and just completely ignore the fact that people of various backgrounds are experiencing issue. Black people are experiencing racism on campus. Latino students are experiencing, oh, you're going to be deported even though they're American citizens. On my campus at American University, somebody was walking up on campus wearing an ICE jacket and they weren't part of ICE. So if this Civil Rights Act is going to be enforced, it should be used to enforce all anything that's targeting everybody. Now, let's talk about the BSness. Is that the word? I'm a poet. I can make stuff up. Of this order. The fact of the matter is, the Trump administration does not care about Jewish American people. They don't. They are very committed to what's happening in Israel, but much of their actions in this country have actually led to a rise in anti Semitism. And they are using Jewish protection towards Jewish students as a cover. How do we know this is a fact? Just look at Columbia University. It is fairly safe to say that during the protests last year, Columbia University did the most in shutting down student protesters and encampments. Many of those people who were involved in those encampments were Jewish students, by the way. And if the Columbia University went so far to protect Jewish students, why did they just lose last week $400 million in grants and contracts with the federal government over what Trump says their failure to protect Jewish students, when they were doing the most? Not to say that every Jewish student on Columbia's university campus felt safe. I'm not saying that. My point is that they did more to crack down pro-Palestinian protests than any other university. And they talked about the need to protect Jewish students more than a lot of universities. Whether they failed, whether they did that 100%, that's a conversation for another day. But they made efforts, right? But $400 million. $400 million. That's across the entire campus, for science, for all types of other research. And they're using that as this idea because they know that it's going to be a trigger. They know that organizations like the ADL and other organizations are going to say, yes, 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 do that, do that, do that. But it's a front. It's a front. Many of these universities are doing a lot to protect students of all backgrounds, including Jewish students, and Trump wants to take their funding away because he doesn't want an informed public. He doesn't believe in universities. He wants them, especially after what happened with Trump's university. And so all of you across the country, students, professors, university heads of universities, activists who do the most to fight anti-Semitism, because there are real people and real organizations doing a lot to fight anti-Semitism. And don't get me wrong, the ADL does do work to fight anti-Semitism, but to be quite honest, since Trump's come back in, some of their actions have been very questionable. And again, when people just throw out anti-Semitism as a pretext to be able to do anything, they're running into a lot of problems. We need to do real work to understand anti-Semitism, to understand Islamophobia, to challenge it, to make sure that people are actually dealing with consequences when people are being threatened or they're experiencing hostilities and the like. But Trump is throwing that out, just like in Louisiana, they threw out, because we're against DEI, they're getting rid of the lawsuit that the Biden administration brought up to challenge what was called Cancer Alley in Louisiana, where many poor black people are experiencing high rates of cancer because of this company Denko, this Japanese owned company, and the things that they're pouring out into the environment. Young family members, young people and old, are getting cancer at higher rates in other parts of the country. The Biden administration was investigating and suing this. The Trump administration removed that investigation and that lawsuit. Why? Because of DEI. Because they know, quote unquote, DEI is a trigger word. Because they don't want to say which part of the DEI they're against, the diversity, the equity, the inclusion, right? What does DEI have to do with helping people not get cancer? So this is what they're going to do. They're going to throw out patriotism. They're going to throw out anti-Semitism. They're going to throw out anti-DEI and anti-woke when they're real. And they're going to continue, just like they did during the election cycle, they're going to continue to use their campaign of trigger words to trick people while they are pulling research and funding and support from some of the most vulnerable communities in the country, from universities, from Veterans Affairs. The list goes on and on and on. Americans, we have to be smarter than this. We have to wake up and understand, how does Columbia lose? And I'm going to talk about Mahmoud Khalil in a separate video, so please stay tuned to that. How's Columbia University losing $400 million because they're not protecting Jewish students? It does not connect. And I can guarantee you there are Jewish students on Columbia University's campus who are doing research, who needed that money for research, for internships, for grants, for housing, for all of these other types of things, and that's gone. So is it really protecting them? It's a lie. It's nonsense. And anybody who's serious about your particular community being protected, I'm talking about the human community, but whether you are, very more passionate about LGBTQ protections or black protections or Jewish protections or Latino run down the list. Run down the list. You cannot let the government use your issue as a guise to go in and destroy everything else behind that. Because I can guarantee you, Columbia University right now could wave a magic wand and every Jewish student could feel 100% protected. No hostilities, nothing. I'm talking about on a whim, like this, because this isn't really happening. That $400 million isn't coming back to Columbia University. That money's going somewhere else, maybe to line the pockets of some billionaires and tax cuts and the like. So please, y'all, at what point are we going to realize that Trump has a trigger word Trump? He has a trigger word presidency, where he just throws things out and does the most to destroy organizations while using things that he knows people are going to bite at. Anti-Semitism is real, and people are experiencing issues relating to anti-Semitism on campus. I've had Jewish students tell me that. There's no question about that. But what Trump is doing, he does not care about Jewish Americans in any way, shape, or form. Anti-Semitism rises with the Trump administration. He surrounds himself with neo-Nazis and people who praise Hitler and are Holocaust deniers. Those guys weren't in the Biden administration. They wouldn't have been in the Harris administration. They surround him. And once people are clear about that, the way that he differentiates between what happens with Jewish people in America versus Jewish people in Israel, we can be able to fight back in a more united front. So this letter from Linda McMahon, this is a cover. And all universities need to be on notice. And you can never do enough. You can never do enough for the Trump administration to not continually use anti-Semitism and not even talk about protecting other people within the Civil Rights Act. Please don't fall for the okie doke. Please stand up and fight this. Please challenge this in every way, shape, or form. Our Jewish students deserve better. Our Muslim students deserve better. All of our students deserve better. Our universities deserve better as well. Just like I started out with, there are no liberal arts colleges and universities in a dictatorship. And that's Trump's end goal. Wake up. Peace.
Bella the Dog from Springfield, A Tale of Truth and Transformation. In the small, charming town of Springfield, Ohio, lived a regal standard poodle named Bella. Bella belonged to Mrs. Vaughn Thursenberg, a well-known figure in the community, always polished, conservative in manner, but a lifelong Democrat. For years, she hosted elegant soirees, engaging in local politics, and treating her home like a kingdom. Bella had grown accustomed to a life of luxury, complete with fancy collars, custom bow ties, and an endless supply of treats from those who adored her. Recently, however, things had changed. Mrs. Vaughn Thursenberg had been watching a lot of Fox News, and it seemed to have swayed her thinking.
For more, click tree link in profile.
La bola de cristal de la soñadora. En algún lugar de Springfield, Ohio, una niña migrante haitiana y su madre acababan de recoger bayas frescas, nueces, dátiles y frutas para los ancianos del pueblo. Con el dinero que ganaron, se dirigieron al mercado con entusiasmo, planeando comprar verduras para un delicioso estofado de venado que la madre estaba preparando esa noche. Pero cuando llegaron, se encontraron con una escena caótica. Una multitud de partidarios trumpistas, con banderas de una era pasada ondeando en el aire, acusaba falsamente a la madre de ser una sirvienta o mascota de la gente del pueblo.
Para más información haga clic en el enlace del árbol en el perfil.
The Baker and the Handyman's Sweet Connection. In a quaint village nestled in a picturesque valley, there stood a small house in the shape of a mushroom. This whimsical home belonged to a young boy named Jamie, barely out of high school, who had a passion for baking. Inside, his cozy kitchen was always filled with the sweet aroma of cakes, cookies, and all sorts of delightful treats. What made his creation special was that each of his cakes was shaped like tiny mushrooms, a nod to his quirky home. Jamie's baking became the talk of the town. From birthdays to celebrations, everyone in the village adored his sweets.
For more, click link in the bio.
Appetite for destruction. In the year 2032, the world teetered on the brink of disaster as humanity faced a nightmare no one could have foreseen. Food, the very thing that sustained life, had turned into a weapon of terror. It all began in a remote factory in China, shrouded in smoke and shadows. Rows upon rows of vegetables grew in eerie greenhouses, their leaves trembling under artificial lights. Workers moved through the rows, their expressions tense. Whispers filled the factory. Something was wrong with the crops. Lee Wei, a seasoned worker, approached a row of tomatoes, each fruit unnaturally large and almost translucent. As he reached out, one of the tomatoes suddenly lurched forward, releasing vine-like tendrils that wrapped around his wrist, pulling him into its soft, pulpy flesh. Lee's scream was swallowed by the shadows as the tomato consumed him.
Don't forget to download a free EPUB reader at Google Play Store.
For more, click Linktree in bio.
A Dying Planet, The Last Harvest.
In the year 2060, Earth is a shadow of its former self, choked by pollution, endless concrete, and abandoned by nature. Only a small fishing village by the sea has managed to preserve the planet's last untouched forest. In this dying world, June and Win, two young girls and the last children in their village, cling to the remnants of hope and innocence. Win roams the forest, collecting the season's last harvest, while June sings songs that echo with a haunting beauty through the village.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.